Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Super License F1 podcast. My name's Rodney.
My name is Zach.
Zach, how are you, my friend? Good to talk to you.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the mood on this podcast is delightful. It snowed overnight, Rod, and you know what? This has been great timing because my fridge broke last week.
Good thing you don't need one now.
Yep, and I literally have been doing that. It broke on like Wednesday. You know how I found out? I went to the bottom drawer, which is where I keep all my good ice creams. Hackney Gelatos, the Judes, the Ben & Jerry's.
Wait. Good ice creams implies the existence of bad ice creams. And where do you keep the bad ice creams?
Sometimes. You just got to have your everyday ice creams, like a very normal vanilla that goes in a different drawer, in the same freezer, just a different drawer that is for, you know, when you're having a bit of apple pie or you need just a vanilla for a milkshake or something like that. But your fancy ice creams are to be enjoyed alone. So I went there and I went to get the Hackney Gelato pistachio and lemon, I think it was, which is also dairy-free, and went to pull it out. And it was soft. And I was like, oh no, because the fridge had been making funny noises. And then it had stopped making any noise. And I was suspicious. But it still seemed cold. But fridges are like that, right? They're good at holding the cold in once they are cold.
They do okay. It's like they were built to do that.
So there was so much. There's like 6, 7 tubs of ice cream down there that are all like half full that I couldn't eat all of them. So I drank one of them, like a milkshake. That was feeling not good.
I would have had 6 milkshakes that day, I think.
I should have just done that. It would have been so much. So we very quickly transitioned to the shopping bag on the windowsill, on the front windowsill, essentially in the gutter, because it's been -3 and 0 degrees. So you buy some beers from the shop and then you put them on the windowsill and they just stay cool. And so, yeah, you have to reach out into the windowsill to get the yogurt out of the bits and pieces. But now my fridge, my outdoor windowsill fridge has turned into a freezer. So I suppose today's the day to buy new ice cream if I need it. Hopefully the fridge is fixed on Wednesday. We shall see.
Sounds good. Well, my fridge is fine, so I don't have any story to go into about it.
That's fine.
We left the door open the other day when we went out to see someone. We came back and it was beeping away. And, a few things we had to throw away, but it wasn't too bad. No fancy ice creams or anything. They're all fine. I keep them safely stored in my stummy.
Yeah, you buy the ice creams, you eat the ice creams. That's a good move.
They belong to me, and I'm going to eat all of them up. Anyway, well, listen, the Formula One, tell you what, it has come and gone, and we've done a bloody good job, if I do say so myself, of covering it. But as always, we have a now yearly tradition. I was trying to work this out the other day. I think it's 8 years that we've been doing this. An end-of-year chat with our good mates, Box and Neutral, otherwise known as Box of Neutrals, Michael and Rob. So the job for us to do now is to stop blathering on and get into that talk, and then we'll come back on the other side of this talk and we'll just wrap up the year for you, F1 style, sort of more officially. But yeah, any last thoughts, Zach, before we throw to this insightful conversation that we had with Box of Neutrals?
No, I mean, I just can't believe we've done it 8 times. That's more than some other podcasts have total episodes. So good job us, and it was a good chat. I'm looking forward to hearing it back live now.
With us, you and me, and them. Boom.
It's the tradition everyone looks forward to every year. It's got nothing to do with Christmas or New Year or Ferrari sacking their team principal, the other great tradition of Formula One. It's Box of Neutrals meeting Super License podcast on the internet, across oceans, via satellite. My name is Michael Laminato. I'm joined always by Rob James.
Via satellite. Do you know how expensive that is, Michael? It's like, it's cheaper than you think. I reckon, you know what, one of these years we're going to give up on Skype, because I don't believe in the internet. It's just too unreliable. As long as Elon Musk has a stake in how the internet is transmitted, I'm going to go back to old. You know what? I reckon next year we do it via satellite for real, and then the year after we do it via Telegram, not the app, the actual that one. Yeah, so imagine if you go, Formula McGinley, stop.
We'll take it. Whatever's floating out there, we'll take it. Of course, the Super License boys, Zachary Priest, you're first. You've already spoken.
That's
YTB.
I can't live up to that. Yes, I have already spoken. I love jumping an intro before I'm actually here. I am here to Zachary Priest. Yep, full names on this podcast only, please.
Yes. A middle name required, and then someone can copy your passport and do all the great things people do on the internet.
Oh, God. What's my mother's name again? It's weird that you asked us
And
that.
in the spirit of full names, it's Rodney Gordon.
Hey, how's it going? I'm politely waiting. I did a bit of laughing, but I think we can edit that out, so that's fine. But it's nice to be with everyone. It's good to talk to you all again. It's good to be here doing an end-of-year show at the end of the year, which I think works better than what we tried at the start of the year.
Do we do it at the start of the year? Oh, I don't remember. It seems like it was almost 11 months ago that we last did it. Time goes by so quickly, those 11 months, but...
It's still time. What does time mean? The last 2 years, what does time really mean? But in that time, tried and true tradition. That was hard to say. We're going to give out our awards for the end of the year. Our regular awards, they're always different. In fact, I've thought about doing this, but I've never bothered to because I have other things to do. But I'd like to have accumulated at some point all of the awards we've given out over the history of the show.
Yeah, create a
just to
database.
see. Maybe that'll be for next year. In 11 months, we'll reconvene again.
Do we give
and perhaps we'll have
an
done
award to our favourite award from our previous awards?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
The
If it's
award
been
award.
5 years, we should have an award of the awards. Awards Best Award.
Maybe we could get another award show to sponsor our award awards.
Quite possibly. We'll get Will Smith, the host. It'll be great.
out.
Who
I'm
wants
busy,
to kick
sorry.
off with this? I'm going to say, Rodney, do you want to start things off
Oh, I'd love to.
for the 2022 awards?
Fantastic. That's no pressure. I also feel like I never go first, which is it's as good because now I don't need to stress whether someone else is going to pick the one thing that I've got ready. Can we do sponsor awards? Can I say he's my award sponsored by so and so?
We insist.
My
I insist.
award. Here we go. Let's line things up. Here we go. This is the Don't Stop Believing Award, sponsored by the band Journey, the literal band Journey, which I'm giving out. Oh, sorry, that was Rob's. That was going to be Rob's award.
I was going to ask for a revenue share for a second because I thought you know how although whenever there's some kind of major disaster of which there's now seemingly one there's a 100 in a 100-year flood or bushfire event that happens every 3 months. So the appeals have kind of stopped. So the unilateral sort of Channel 7, 9, 10, simulcasts have stopped. We should do the same with sponsors. So if we bring in Liquorland, you bring in BWS, or someone else brings in, Liquorland O'Norris, and then all of the one thing that unites the world together, apart from commercial television networks, is liquor license holders.
We could add some international flair, a bit of naked wines, some majestic wines. Or just Carling.
Just
Is
Carl.
there well, Zachary Priest, you're in the UK. Is it Morris Jones?
No,
Or what's the place called over
this
there?
is the thing, right? We just put our alcohol in the supermarket, so
Tesco's,
we don't need
that's
separate
right.
stores.
Curry's? Did you get it from Curry's?
Yes, Curry. No, that's what you have after you've had the alcohol.
Westfield?
We're out of the blocks. I mean, this is it. If you were hoping for a Formula One show, forget it. This is what you're going to get. Just an hour more of this.
No, forget it. It's existential.
The award, the Don't Stop Believing Award, sponsored by the literal band Journey. Does anyone know how many races we had this year? There were 23 races, but we lost one to Russia. We lost Russia. We know where it is, and it's the one that's annexing that other country. But anyway, 22 races. There were 3 podium positions per race. That's 66 podium positions that we gave out. Literally only one of them to the journeyman of Formula One, Mr. Lando Norris, the only man to stand on the podium who was not from Ferrari, Red Bull, or Mercedes. So I give you the Don't Stop Believing, sponsored by the literal band Journey award.
McLaren just had a very quiet year, didn't it? If you ask me whoever
They did
else...
sack a driver in a fairly messy situation.
True. But I don't remember even Lando Norris being on the podium. That's how much it was of a kind of blank year for everyone
It
else.
was early in the year at Imola at the Emilia-Romagna race. But boy, you didn't like seeing, if you like seeing Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull take podiums, it was a good year for you. I guess it was one of those years where it was easy to overtake and the cream was loaded to the top, I guess you could say. But, for all this talk of how many great overtakes we had this season and how great the action was, it was, if you're hoping for a midfield resurgence, a couple of mixed results, no random winners, really, I wouldn't say. You got Carlos Sainz took his first career win.
Which is insane.
Russell took his first career win.
Yeah, but
they're in
Carlos
teams.
Sainz, I have a bone to pick with Carlos Sainz here, right? And maybe
Brilliant. Oh, this is so good.
we've talked about it before, but just the constant failing up. Everyone knows he's the race driver's race driver. He is the guy. Everyone knows he's actually amazing. He's just had a rough run, but it was just kind of underwhelming this year, right? Like, Michael, Rob, you must have strong feelings on Carlos Sainz because he's just a bit of a nothing burger to me.
If I was Kane Corn, I would say he has to lift next year. Otherwise, he will never be in Formula One ever again. Just write him off continuously. He's on notice, I think, for next year, because I was reading somewhere where I can't remember. There's too much literature, too much junk literature.
Oh man, screams the cloud.
And so I'm not going to even I'm not even citating who it was out of this. It's just I don't remember. Quite frankly, I don't really care. Someone was saying, Carlos Sainz long term should think about maybe moving to Audi, perhaps after Ferrari. And I thought, that's a bit far fetched. Why would he leave Ferrari? But then again, if he has another year that he had in 2022 in 23, and I'm not even talking about with just if he comes back with just one race win next year, but I think it's if the level of inconsistency we've quite frankly I don't think we've seen from Carlos, because everywhere he's gone he held his nerve against Max at Toro Rosso when they were both fighting when he went to Renault, which is like a weird. You know what? Side note, I've always wanted to do this. Race drivers that look like they don't belong in a race team. Carlos Sainz at Renault. It just doesn't. It just didn't look right. It just didn't look right. I'll say that for another day. But So at Renault he was okay. McLaren he was great. He was part of that sort of weird. Sort of pick me up period where McLaren were stopped being really shit, the GP2 engine era shit. He's gone to Ferrari, and even they've kind of lifted a little bit. So, and Carlos hasn't really matched that. He had the spin. I seem to remember he crashed out in Australia, or had a spin early on in the season. It was just, when's Carlos Sainz going to crash or bin it, which is very uncharacteristic. So I think he's ironed out some of it, but he needs to up his game next year.
He needs to lift.
Yeah.
So when they get a new team principal, he's going to look at the results. It's going to be like, Carlos, where do you fit in here, man? I just can't see a fit for you.
Weird that they hired Kane Corn as the team principal, though.
Ferrari claims second in the drivers, claims second in the constructors. Nah, get rid of the team principal. I'm not sure I understand it, to be honest.
Well, don't steal the thunder for my award, Rodney Gordon. Please do not steal my award.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I may have to institute a second award, which I've just made up. So
Okay, well, very good. I am also keeping my powder dry until someone mentions Chico Perez, and then
But what does this mean for Lando Norris then? Right, so he's the other guy. He's the other.
He's the seventh guy.
He's outside the top six. Yeah, he's the seventh man, literally the 12th man of our F1 cricket podiums. So, like, does he need to move? Like, is he a bit like George Russell in his circumstance, right?
Let me put this to you as an alternative, not as an alternative award, but an alternative perspective on this. Let's not forget in February, before preseason testing even started, he signed a 5-year deal to stay at McLaren, or 4-year deal. He's there till the end of 2025. He signed a deal last year as well, so I can't figure out what the balance of years are. But whatever it was, it's taking him to the end of 2025. And that's because McLaren, last year, they were on the last couple of years, they've been on the up. He smashed Daniel Ricciardo last year, and that was a pretty big boost of confidence, and he was performing really well. He felt happy with the team, all that kind of stuff. They were going to do great. They're going to finish third. They're going to be winning races before you knew it. And then in that first race of the year, it was the slowest car bar none. It was slower than even the Williams. And of course, they got better over the course of the year, but never even got back to fourth. Alpine was the quicker car for pretty much the whole year. It was even the start of the year. Alfa Romeo was quicker than McLaren as well. It just seems like, and I don't think McLaren's going to get much better next year either. Like, it's going to be at least a couple of years before they start to show some signs of improvement, if they do in this era of regulations. It just seems like this was also a mistake for him, because he's outperforming the team at the moment, isn't he? Like, he's the guy, and this statistic shows it, Rod, doesn't it? He's the only guy who got a podium. He wasn't one of the top 3 teams capable of that kind of performance, and he's being absolutely wasted in McLaren.
Yeah, this is the Leclerc-Sauber situation.
Or Leclerc-Ferrari.
My concern with Norris is if he gets too comfortable being at McLaren, because it's
also possible.
Yeah, because, well, obviously the whole Oscar thing is a potential. It could go either way. It depends how it all it all begins. If Oscar gets, a couple of runs on the board, then
New hotness Oscar.
Well, we've seen it happen. Dan Ricciardo and Vettel at Red Bull in 2014,
Those are the days,
albeit slightly different circumstances. It wasn't a rookie season, but Hamilton, Alonso, for example.
You want to be the guy coming into a team.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think there is. I can see the merit of him staying for. I'm a big believer, and I like the fact that Lando Norris. I've said this for a very long time. McLaren is his team. So, and again, if we want to talk about drivers that look like they don't belong, him at Mercedes just doesn't look right. It's as much as Nigel Mansell didn't look right at Ferrari. Neither would a Lewis Hamilton look right. Mark Webber was never going to look right at Ferrari.
True.
And yet, quite frankly, Daniel Ricciardo didn't look quite right at McLaren.
You can sign a multi-year deal when you're 22 or whatever, right? It's not...
Yeah.
He's still got time on his side. I mean, even if he's outdriving the team, it doesn't really matter because he's got a few years to work it out.
That's true. And it's a little bit different to the Rosberg-Williams deal because he was very much rusted onto that team. He grew up with that team in his F1 journey, then obviously left Mercedes for bigger and better pastures in Extreme E. So there's obviously merit in leaving, but I think. But Rosberg was different in the sense that Williams was shit. they were arse end of the grid, whereas McLaren is, they could kind of tip either way. To be honest, I don't think they could ever fall to such pathetic depths, but stranger things have happened.
I guess it kind of depends as well now on... obviously it depends on how well McLaren does in the next few years, because this contract takes him till the end of the current set of rules. So essentially, whatever happens under these rules, he's probably stuck with McLaren. Now, I think that team will improve at the latter end of those rules, because they get a new wind tunnel that's going to come online part of the way through next year, so might be effective for the following season. So that's already 2024. So already we're looking at the last couple of years of his contract. But there is a broader question here about whether or not, and the cost cap's meant to fix this and all the restrictions are meant to fix this, but whether or not midfield teams can become front runners in the way that Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull are. That's really the bigger question here, isn't it? Because maybe McLaren, having shown all of that, improvement and progress in the last couple of years, hit that ceiling and have ended up nowhere. Now, Alpine will find out. I think that will actually be the bigger test because it feels like they've got the momentum now. They did take a step forward this year and they were that slight bit closer to the front. But if they can't improve enough next year, then we do have to wonder whether any of these drivers, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, Lando Norris, any of those guys will ever get a crack to be in front-running teams, because that is just closed. Maybe midfield teams, maybe we're past the era where they can, go back to becoming great teams again. I think that's almost what's more interesting for the Lando Norris question, because then, like you say, Rob, it's sort of hard to imagine him at one of the other teams. Like, I'm sure... Red Bull have said they talked to him when he was looking to renew deals with McLaren, but then I think Christian Horner also, and I mean, take what Christian Horner says with a grain of salt, but even he was kind of like, I don't think he was really serious. Like, even he felt like he wasn't being treated seriously. So, I don't know. I think that's sort of the interesting extra question, is that we're really hopeful that these teams could become front runners, but they also just might not. I mean, McLaren hasn't been a front runner for like a decade now.
No. Ever since you lose that status of being cutting-edge, manufacturer-driven squad, Sauber has more hope of being up the front, quite frankly.
At least
literally
equal.
Because their circumstances are completely different when Audi come online towards the end of the decade. So, it sounds ridiculous now, but 10 years ago, the Mercedes being the dominant force in F1 seemed almost quite as ridiculous, as did Red Bull when they very first started, took over, literally bought the team off Ford for $1 and grew it to become the powerhouse that it became. But I think the major concern is, I don't want to get too deep about the whole thing, but it might get to a stage where it's too late when Formula One realises, oh shit, we need to really do something about the pecking order, because it's going to get to a stage where it's, not that IndyCar's ever going to take over, but you look at that series, for example, where there's a handful of drivers. Now, granted, I'm not a very close follower of IndyCar, but it seems far more competitive than say F1. There's obviously a pecking order, but in an ideal world, you would have a McLaren fighting for wins every odd weekend alongside your major. It's like the big banks. It's like it's fine to have your Westpacs and your Commonwealth banks of the world and your Liquorlands of the world are fine.
I bank with Liquorland. I don't know about you guys.
Well, I give them all my money.
Most of my money
mean.
is.
But you've got to have a couple of buy low liquors and a couple of Bendigo banks sort of pottering around and needing to have sort of a sniff at victory every now and then. So ideally you would say a Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari as the current top end of town, the Collins End Street, and then you've got a couple of sort of upstarts from Alpine and now McLaren, and potentially even Aston Martin, in a handful of years. When someone replaces Lance Stroll, there needs to be some kind of carrot to dangle because it is bizarre that it is Formula One is as popular as it is now, and with teams banging down the door to come in with literally, they say there's 20 seats in Formula One. Arguably, there's really 9.
I was going to say the same thing.
8. That doesn't make sense. There's literally, hang on, no, 2, 4, there's 6.
Oh.
There's really 6 seats to play for at F1. And if you break down those 6, there's really 2, Lewis and Max.
I can't remember that. What was the name of the award? Don't Stop Believing. I feel like all we've done is take the belief out of Lando Norris. All we've done is crush his hopes in this award. To
tie a bow under the Lando Norris talk, does anyone feel like he used to be a sort of beloved golden boy of the field, and this year in particular he's just been head down, Mr. Anonymous, kind of a bit sulky? I feel like there's a bit of sparkle just missing. And then when we're talking about, hey, what's his career look like in 3 or 4 years, does he have to kickstart himself a little bit? Or, I mean...
No. You know what it is? He's grown older. He has spent time in a very exhausting and consuming paddock. People pestering him for selfies and for photos.
Novelties world.
People on weird sort of internet sort of clutching onto his love life and crap like that. So for him, I think he's probably
like internet weary,
becoming more cynical. As much as he came in wanting, like, you come in with open eyes, going, "Wow, I want to be so accessible to all the fans, and I want to do this, I want to do that," and then the fans will take too much of this and too much of that, and put weird sort of fan fiction about me, and then it becomes a bit weird, and so you have to become guarded because otherwise you can't walk down the paddock without being pestered.
I wonder if he's lost himself a little bit, just in that identity of like he doesn't know who he is anymore. Like, am I the milk boy? Am I who am I? Am I the funny hat kid? Like, what's going on here?
I think he's trying to, as Daniel Ricciardo, hung on to the class clown of F1. I think Lando has seen the writing on the wall on how that ends up, and I think he's gone to the George Russell school.
He's kept his shirt on at least. Yeah. It is a good point. It definitely changed when Daniel rocked up, didn't it? He certainly became more serious. But on the other hand, you can say he got a lot better when Daniel rocked up and became more serious. True. So maybe there is something in that.
I'd be curious to see how he goes with Oscar because Lando now finds himself as the position, not as the de facto, quite the unspoken team leader by sort of merit. He's literally the elder driver now. Yeah. So that's a completely different role for him, and one he probably, up until this point, isn't used to.
Probably didn't expect to have one, imagine, so early in his career. Partner with Carlos Sainz seemed like it was going to go forever, and then partner with Daniel Ricciardo, which thought was meant to be a long-term, at least 3-year deal. And now all of a sudden, he's the boss, essentially. And it's interesting, isn't it? That team, it's built around him, obviously, because he's the performing driver, but it is effectively his team now. Within the space of a couple of years, he's owned McLaren. He's the Max Verstappen of McLaren, if you like. It's just a shame the car is not nearly as good as Red Bull. But, it is exactly what he wanted when he signed that long-term contract, I guess, isn't it? That it's his McLaren, but I guess it's just not the McLaren that he wanted. But we'll wait and see if that ever gets there in the next few years. I guess we'll have a clearer answer. So, great award. He wouldn't like it, I suppose. He wouldn't like the way this award was awarded to him.
Please don't tell him. No one tweet him about this podcast.
No, he doesn't check anyway. Surely he's got a manager to do that.
He's too busy.
Yes. Rob, do you want to take us through our next award?
Well, I was going to have two but I forgot what my other one was, and I couldn't find the audio file. So just bear with me on the supplementary. I'll give that'll be a supplementary award, and I may need your assistance in post production.
Okay, great.
So my award, I think I warned either off air or in my introduction a very as is Box of Neutrals' way. Forget about Australian references to a podcast which is quite heavily frequented by the Americas and the Netherlands and bits of Europe, including Her Majesty's.
Oh, wow, it's His Majesty's. Come on, man. Show
There's
some
no
respect.
more obscure reference than a Melburnian reference. So the award for the on the scale of Matthew Guy to Mattia Bonotto, how cooked is your party base? Because I find the treatment of Mattia Bonotto egregious. I find it's you know why I reference the Matthew Guy and Mattia Bonotto case? It's because I know nothing about politics, but the way that I see it, it was a state election for those of you playing along at home, and
You'd be
Matthew Guy
forgiven.
lost.
Even people who live in Victoria, you'd be forgiven for not knowing who Matthew Guy is.
Yes, Matthew Guy lost, but also he lost the last time round quite dramatically.
That brought him back to lose again.
And so the whole thinking was, the last person to that we fronted up as the leading candidate lost in what was called a dance slide. So let's try again, because that could have been a margin of error. There could have been some kind of movement that swept through. I think we're going to go.
Can we
again.
go back to those moderate losses of 8 years ago? Let's go back to that.
Let's try again. It can't be as bad the next time around. And then lo and behold, here we are again. Ferrari are pretty much in the same case. They've resorted to what's comfortable, what they think is the right is what will help them win the next election / championship, and that is to sack somebody. Which is we've made jokes about this for a good decade, some of which involve cement trucks. So it is. It is at meme levels of how Ferrari deal with non-performance, and so I think it's fair enough when there's just complete negligence in terms of if a car I don't know, you design a wing upside down, stupid stuff like that, or where you just have a team of misfits and just everyone's arguing and whatever. Then I would understand. But if you think about it, the teams that have done well with extreme stability and almost a benign dictatorship of their F1 teams. Christian Horner, he's been fronting that since 2005. He was my age when he took over the reins there. Now he has a Spice Girl and a horse. So, he's had a good life. Toto Wolff has led that team since 2011?
Around maybe 12, thereabouts.
For nearly a decade. And even in the bad old days of the problematic Flavio Briatore.
Great days.
A man who knows more about woolen jumpers and yachts and supermodels than he does about sort of wishbones and diffusers. Yes, his stability at that team helped them go through the good times and the bad. So in the bad times, they didn't get rid of him. He apart from a brief period, but he fundamentally, the good and the bad, he was pretty much there, apart from the time he was ceremoniously disgraced out of the sport.
Banned for life.
We'll put that aside.
Yeah.
And Ferrari, their best period was when they had so much stability with under ex-El Presidente Jean Todt. And then as soon as he left, it was a rotating door of personnel, because it was just a just a knee-jerk reaction to the slightest, to any loss. It was seen as heads need to roll. Like I don't know what SEN Italia is doing on the talk. I don't know whose Ferrari club memberships they're putting in the microwave. I don't know how much pressure they are applying, because my God, do they sort of jump the shark on a couple of... I think that out of all of the sackings they've done in years gone by... And for me, I think the worst of it was the end of 2010 when they sort of did a clean out of some of their engineering staff. I think this is the worst they have done since then, because you've let go of a person who has been very stable to that team, finally brought some calm. Yes, there were a couple of wobbles, in a handful of years where they seemed pathetic. There was the infamous secret resolution after some kind of engine malfeasance. And so, but this year they turned the corner massively, apart from a couple of errors. But, I just don't know how they're just unstable again. And it just, it makes me go all cane corns and go, you know what, put a line through them for next year.
Yeah,
because
totally agree, Rob. I said before, it doesn't make any sense to me why they got rid of him. At least it doesn't make sense to me why they got rid of him now. And you could look at Horner, you could look at Toto, you could even look at Flavio and say those guys all had success, meaning championships, silverware or goldware, depending on which one they give you. They all got success within 5-6 years of them taking over the reins. And I'd say the other thing that they had was just that bastard factor, that X factor that was like, you are ruthless. You are going to get us a championship. I know that Pinotto's had success. I know that he's obviously, you just look at the man and you just think, this is a smart dude. But I don't know that he has that sort of foot against the throat factor of like, you're going to get us championships, aren't you? Like you will stop at nothing to get us championships. But surely they knew that a long time ago. And if they don't want that kind of person, why did they make him the team principal? And why has he still been there? Has it been 5 years since he's been there?
Not even. I think it was 4 years in, I think this was.
4 years?
I think this was his 4th year, off the top of my head. And it is remarkable, because the instability is one factor. But when you can understand in the heat of this year that there was clearly unhappiness from all directions and moving in all directions, because the team was underperforming. It had the fastest car up until roundabout Hungary, so up roundabout until the halfway mark of this season, and it wasted it with strategic errors. Charles Leclerc crashed once or twice. There were times where the team was just not sharp enough, and they threw away massive points lead. But when you zoom out, this team suffered its worst campaign in decades only 2 years ago. Last year it finished 3rd in the championship. This year it probably should have, it should have, maybe not should have won the championship, it's probably too much to say, but it should have been competing for the championship in a way that it didn't after the 4th round pretty much. So I can understand that disappointment, but that progress is so significant that it seems ridiculous that can't be backed up. Like, there is really only one step to go, and no step has been missed yet. And Mattia Binotto, okay, maybe this was somewhat self-serving, but after around Monaco time, I think it was, when they threw away Monaco 1-2 on the grid, sort of said the aim was never to win the championship this year, which is something traditionally you don't say in Formula One.
No.
But he said he just didn't, no one expected them to be title contenders this year.
You don't say that into microphones.
Yeah, you say it quietly in your sleep when no one's around.
In your sleep.
But that's not, that's probably accurate. They probably did not expect this year to start the year with the quickest car, and it did end up being a bit of a bonus. And yes, that's not an excuse for wasting it, because you have the quickest car, you should use it. But really, all these KPIs probably were met, the KPIs set before the start of the year. And it's such a shame that he's been let go in this way, because he deserved one more year. And this is the other thing. I think there's a fine line between defending him and saying he shouldn't have been sacked, and saying also that he was the right guy for the job. Because realistically, we don't know that. He has not won the title. He had the tools to do a better job this year and didn't use them, but there were valid excuses for them. If next year he couldn't do it, then it wouldn't seem unreasonable, unless, they lost by a point or whatever and went down to the last race, and then, that's fair enough. But if they got smashed next year again, then that would be on his head. The question is now, if Ferrari can't do well next year, if they don't come out of the blocks immediately with the fastest car, which if they do, by the way, it'll be because of Mattia Binotto as well. So that'll be sort of cold comfort for him. But if they get smashed next year again, who carries the can for that and the inevitable subsequent years of the team underperforming when it would seem like at this point they should have been on the cusp of winning titles? And that is the question that needs to be answered by the board and the president, John Elkann, and the guy who's the CEO now. And there's a rumor, although it's more recently been denied, that even Nicholas Todd, Jean Todd's manager, was part of the movement to try and move Mattia Binotto out. If that's true, and even if it's not true for Nicholas Todd, for the other people who were involved, it's up to them now to carry the can if this team underperforms, because from a sporting perspective, it's cooked.
It's very easy to be an armchair critic, and I think those people need to back it up. The faceless men, and they are men because they're idiots. Then yeah, at least put your name to it, because the politics of it all is what constantly brings Ferrari undone, and it's just like, okay, we're doing the same habits that we've done for years before, because it's all we know almost. You almost feel sorry for them because it's all they know.
He clearly doesn't know how to play the branch stacking game. Clearly, yeah. It seems also, and I mean, there's all kinds of whispers going around about like faceless men who have got it out for Binotto. Obviously someone else wants his job. It seems there's whispers of the Leclerc factor, the bright-eyed boy. They're the future behind the wheel, and Binotto not necessarily getting on too well. So. You have to wonder whether, because I mean, like you say, on paper, I can't get my head around it. It makes no sense. Just, I think that you could look at Red Bull and Verstappen this year and go, well, no, you set the record for wins. Set the all-time record for wins. That's as close to unbeatable as you're going to get. So, I mean, unfortunately, there's that Ferrari mentality that comes into it, which is like, we're not going for close. We're not even going for one. We're going for we dominate. And if someone else is dominating, then that's an abject failure, which, boy, I mean, you've got to look at where you put the goalposts in that one. So, but I mean, like I say, in lieu of any other logical explanation, you've got to look for an illogical one, which I end up like, there's some faction that wants him gone and someone else wants his job.
I think the other element of this that could play out, if this really does blow up in Ferrari's face, which is going to be interesting to observe in the next few years.
Imagine if it does. Yes.
I mean, it almost, unless, again, the work they've done this year on next year's car is actually perfect, because they did start with such a great car this year, so it can't be ruled out completely that, they realised the problems they had, they worked on next year's car early, and actually next year's car will be great. So maybe it's not out of the question. But if it's not, I fully expect the next couple of years to be written off by Ferrari. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz have got a couple more years on their deal. There's no reason to expect either of them to stay, if there are other offers, of course, with even reasonably prospective other teams, to stay at a team that continuously roils with politics and self-defeating maneuvers like this. I mean, if Ferrari slips backwards and it's third, and it's far third, like a distant third, then what's the point of either of those two signing on? Because there's a good chance that within the next contract cycle, they'll have already seen the best of Ferrari, which was this year, winning 4 races and throwing away a bunch of other ones and then sacking the boss. So I think that's the other thing, is that more than just risking the progress with the car, you're risking an entire Ferrari generation. Because on paper, and it's all on paper at this point, but Leclerc and Sainz is a really good lineup. I know we got close to talking about Sainz, maybe we'll talk about him later on, but it is on paper a very strong lineup from what we've seen so far, even if this year's Sainz was a little bit less impressive than he was last season. If they throw that away as well after all this, then boy, like, what are you doing?
I want to know what Focus on Ferrari are bringing to the table. Show me your policies. What are you doing? What are you going to do that's so different to everyone else? Because unless they're bringing in Adrian Newey and bringing in Mercedes engines and bringing in, everything under and including the sun, what's the difference? Because all you're doing is changing the captain that signs off on large scale invoices. So I'm very cynical about the whole thing. I just don't think it'll be in their favour, and there'll be no change in the result. If the car's good, it'll be because of the efforts of this year, and if the car's bad, then it's It's a sign of things to come.
Just another Ferrari year, really.
Yes, it does feel like that, doesn't it? It was very good. This is a great award, and I also like the analogy, despite it being extremely Melbourne focused, because it is actually a genuinely great scale between Matthew Guy and Mattia Binotto, because they are two opposites. One was brought back for no reason, the other was sacked for no reason. Like, it really was. It's a genuine, true scale. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that a lot. So I guess Ferrari has to win an award that's got Ferrari in the name, but nonetheless, I think that is a good one. I'll take the next award, I think. If we feel like we fully ventilated Ferrari for now, we can always come back to it, I suppose. But let's move on for now, because my award is for the most gratuitous act of self-flagellation in the contract market, and this absolutely has to go to Fernando Alonso. He continues to race at 41 years old. Of course he does, but he's decided, having raced and worked for and helped develop Alpine into a team that thinks next year it might be able to join the front runners, or at least be a podium contender. He's gone to the team that finished second or third last in the championship, that is run by Lawrence Stroll almost exclusively for the benefit of his son Lance Stroll, and he thinks that is the place to ply his trade in what we can only assume will be the twilight years of his career, although realistically I feel like he probably raced till he's 80, so maybe he's only just getting started. But it is truly remarkable, not only for the fact that he's moved, but also, of course, the effect it had on the driver market, which was sensational and chaotic.
It was.
It was an incredible manoeuvre. And look, maybe he'll prove us all wrong. You know, Aston Martin's spending as much money as they can under the cap. They've got a new factory coming and all that kind of stuff. Maybe they will get better. They were getting better this year, but it just is incredible to think he's left Alpine to go to Aston Martin because of the hint of disrespect, like the idea that he wasn't going to get a very long-term contract and then walked out completely, making his decision in like 2 days. It is incredible.
He's the greatest troll in Formula One history, Fernando Alonso. He just absolutely just absolutely took the piss out of the driver market, and even I think at sort of Donald Trump levels of absolute delusional behaviour. When he drove the blank Aston Martin in Abu Dhabi and said, you know, before the deal I was at 100%, and now having driven the car, I'm at 100%. I'm definitely at 100%. You drove the car that did worse than the team you've since left. So I really don't understand the logic. Of course, I understand the logic because I have it on my notes for 2023 for Box of Neutrals to follow what I'm calling the Fernando Alonso Aston Martin party, which is basically just again another European summer boys trip with him and his mates and Pedro de la Rosa, whose role at Aston Martin I'm still confused about. It can be I don't. It's just like Ferrari sort of turfing out team principals every 4 years. Fernando Alonso changing teams every 3 or 4 yields a similar vibe.
For some reason, I had it in my head that Alonso outscored Ocon this year. But now I'm looking at the points table, I'm realizing Ocon finished quite strongly and edged him out a little bit. But I mean, there's also been these quotes going around of Ocon going like, well, yeah, piss off, Alonso. I've been doing all the friggin' work here. I've been answering all the media questions. I've been doing all the work in a sim while you've been, I don't even know, sitting around learning new magic tricks, whatever the fuck you do with your time. So he hasn't been a happy guy.
No.
And I'm sure he's very, very happy with his new teammate. Fernando Alonso, I just don't, I mean, like when we say disrespect, I mean, if you think of one Formula One driver over the last 20 years that's been disrespectful to numerous teams, his name maybe comes up. So it's like, it's like that old meme of like, here's Fernando sowing. Oh, fuck yeah, this is awesome. Here's Fernando reaping. Oh shit, this sucks. What the fuck?
If we live in apparently a post-truth era, we live in a post-points era with Fernando Alonso, where if he has done some amazing sort of witchcraft and smokescreen to give himself the illusion of being better than Esteban Ocon, then you tip your hat off to him because he's done a very good job of pumping up his own tires, and rightfully so. Again, I've said this before. This is This is the man who, if you look completely at raw data with no context, and people say Fernando Alonso is one of the greatest racing drivers who have ever lived, with a grand total of 2 world championships from the years 2005 and 6. Put it this way, Fernando Alonso won his 2 Formula 1 world titles when Formula 1 was exclusively broadcast in 4x3. So that's how long ago it was. And he runs this amazing campaign where he is, the amount of times I've heard Martin Brundle just in awe of Fernando Alonso. It's a fascinating sort of, he's got that one hell of charisma is all I'll say.
To be fair, now let me step in and I don't want to run defence of Fernando Alonso. He has too much money to require my defence. But he did have not underratedly good, because at the end of every race he told everyone how good a season he was having. But he did have a pretty good season. If you go back and look at all of the retirements he accumulated for the year, he did say halfway through the year he thought he lost 70 points in the season. That was a gross exaggeration. By the end of the year, I think he lost probably close to 60, maybe up to 70 points, but that's at the end of the year. Would have made him comfortably ahead of Lando Norris in the final point standings. So for me, I understand why he thinks he's still, the god of Formula 1, because he is having a good season. And if he were in a better car, he probably would be doing better. What I don't understand is why he continuously burns his opportunities to get a better car. That's the great contradiction with Fernando, isn't it? The fact that he'll have a great season, like 2012 in Ferrari, one of his best seasons. He says it's the only season he reckons was better than this year. He'll probably say the same thing next year. But
yeah, he will.
2012 Ferrari, within a year, he's pissed off Ferrari and he's out the door at the end of 2014. And that's just the way it happens. And this year, again, he worked hard last year. Alpine's in a better position this year. They've sacrificed some engine reliability for performance, which should be fixed next year, and he's out the door before he'll get a chance to see any of that pay off. That's the really crazy thing about all of this, is that he's put in the hard yards for no reward. And, the frustration's real. We've seen it over the course of the year. When he gets out of the car, he's angry and he's shaking his hands and his head and all that kind of stuff. He looks angry, and he is angry. And he even took it out on Esteban Ocon at one point. I think that's why Ocon spoke out in the end. But at the end of the day, it's he's wasting all of his best chances. He came back to Formula 1, went to all this effort to come back to Formula 1, and now he's racing for Aston Martin. And, look, it'd be great if Aston Martin were competitive, just because it'd be another competitive team. But it just doesn't make any sense, other than, of course, the money, which good on him, I guess. Why not?
It's hard to respect the move. And I mean, it's not the first time he's made a move for big money. And people have been like, why? Fernando, why? You do this to yourself. You're doing it to yourself.
There is another element of this, which is the Alpine side of things, because obviously that kicked off a pretty significant moment in the driver market over August, over the mid-season break. And, completely walked out on Alpine, did his best job to burn bridges there. Didn't burn them completely, I think, but he did a pretty good job, all things considered. But then, of course, Oscar Piastri also burned a bridge with Alpine, even though it turned out he was absolutely, completely 100% in the right to leave the team contractually.
I wouldn't want to be a bridge anywhere near Alpine. That's what I'm saying.
That's the interesting part, isn't it? Because in the last couple of years, Daniel Ricciardo, Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri have all left at their first opportunity to leave Alpine. So maybe after thinking that this is a ridiculous move by Fernando Alonso, which I still think it is on pure performance terms, I still think there's this interesting question about what's going on at Alpine that means all of these highly rated drivers are leaving. And, I think for Daniel, it was certainly to his detriment, it turned out, even if he didn't know at the time, possibly killed his career.
Didn't seem like it, but it was.
Maybe the same will happen to Oscar. He's going to the same team. And Fernando Alonso's going to Aston Martin could well be the last thing he ever does in Formula 1. It's remarkable. That is the other element of this that I think is really interesting.
Here's my Robster Dramas tip.
Oh, yes.
My big hot tip. Fernando Alonso, the what is it, the Triple Crown or whatever it is, the crown jewels, or the Dan Murphy's reward card. I forget what it's called.
Dan Murphy's reward card.
Oh, whoops, wrong sponsor. Oh, who cares? They're not signed anyway. He's gone to different teams. He's gone to different series. He's raced at Dakar. He's done IndyCar. He's done F1, obviously. only one more sort of, and you'll think that his last trick is really, I'm just going to piss around like Sebastian Vettel for a couple of years at Aston Martin and want to pick up some rubbish and off I go. No. It's not Fernando Alonso style.
If you say the B word, I'm going to be very unhappy.
What's the B word?
Go on. What's the last thing he's got to do?
Well, potentially there's two.
I know what it is.
Or it could be a fork in the road. He either takes over Stefano Domenicali and runs Formula One himself.
It's pretty good.
Of which he then will institute, which is an idea I've been floating for years as well, is the wildcard entry, of which he will field it every weekend. And it'll be an entry that is off-piste. It's like the Garage 24 of F1, where it is truly, it can run whatever it wants. It doesn't follow.
Oh, yes.
It can run whatever tyres and fuel and whatever, engine capacity, and Fernando will field that car as the CEO of the Formula One group, or he just runs Ferrari. It's one of the two.
I was going to say, Could Fernando step in for Binotto and run Ferrari while still also driving for another team? Like, I don't think that's ever been done, and he's an innovator.
They say that Jack Brabham, he designed and raced his own car. No one's ever sort of driven another car and then ran another rival outfit at the same time either. Fernando is...
Two teams is better than one.
He's cut of that mould. If there's anyone to do it, it's going to be Fernando.
That's it. Look, it's possible. Is it possible as well that he could initiate a takeover of Lawrence Stroll's Aston Martin business and just turn it into Fernando Alonso Racing? Maybe it's a big plan.
You buy me? No way. I buy you.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's just, he's going to use Lawrence Stroll's own money via his salary and take over the business.
Michael, you can't call it the Fernando Alonso Racing team. Think about it.
Oh, very good. Well done.
We're picked.
All I'm saying is that it wouldn't be beyond him if he were to buy it for that to be the team name, because, I mean, the guy, look, can you imagine the Fernando Alonso Racing team principal Mike Crack? Incredible.
That'll get the wind up him.
Very
Give
good.
Full beans, boys.
Very, very good. Well done, everybody. I think that brings us to our last award, having given away the Fernando Alonso Award for gratuitous self-flagellation. Zach, what do you got?
Hey, I'm back. Here I am. This is the Not With a Bang, But With a Whimper award, brought to you by Crypto.com, or what probably, by the time this comes out, they might not exist. So Not With a Bang, But With a Whimper. This award is for the person leaving the F1 grid somewhat just without any fanfare, with basically nothing. And I actually have three contenders here, but I'm just going to pick one from my three, and it's going to be Nicholas Latifi, with just a Formula One career that will be consigned to, one sentence in F1's history books. So, yeah. Are there any other contenders, though, or who wants to pick up on the Latifi thread? Or threadbare.
I'll pick up on the Latifi thread. I'm a Latifi sympathiser. I've been for a while.
Flying the Latifi flag.
I think he's been unfairly maligned. As someone,
has he been maligned?
One of the.
My God.
Let me tell you this: one of the most humbling experiences of my adult life was when I sat down, shook his hand, looked him in the eye of Pastor Maldonado, and just all of the sort of, cheap jokes and the sort of armchair commentary about him. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Rob? You're better
another
than
human
this.
being.
This is a person who actually does this for real. It's another human being. He's just having a go. And he you know what? If Pastor Maldonado had a go, he got a go. And then
he's gone.
He didn't get another go. But he gave it a go. And then he had to go. And Nicholas Latifi, we know there's always a hierarchy. Someone has to finish last.
But does it have to be the same person every week? That's probably the bigger question.
You know it's bad when the team announces that he's leaving, and then it's many, many, many months before they announce who they're replacing him with. And he's like, but you could have just not announced that I was leaving. Yeah. Even just not announced it, even if you've made up your mind. It's like, no, we've made up our mind, Nick. Yeah. It's not you.
Yeah.
You can tell where Nicholas Latifi knew where he sat in the pecking order when was it Jos Capita gave him his parting gift, and it was a bit of body work from his Williams, and Nicholas Latifi thought, oh, is this one that I broke?
Yeah.
He thought he was going to get a joke sort of present, and he's like, oh no, it's one you got from when you scored points, and
From that one time.
Not a very nice touch. So I think, and I've said this as much as because I'm convinced if he did sort of some kind of shootout or some process of elimination. If you pitted Lance Stroll up against Nicholas Latifi, if they were the only two options I had at the Fernando Alonso racing team, if I had one seat, because of course Fernando Alonso will occupy one seat.
Are you sure he can't do both?
In the other,
are you sure he wouldn't keep both cars back just so he could swap, just in case something went wrong?
Yeah, well,
He would try.
give it a go. Yeah, that short guy that always used to be with him at McLaren and Ferrari. His name escapes me. He's old physio. Anyway, he'll drive it. Well, Pedro Dolorosa will drive the other one. But a third Aston Martin, a third Fernando Alonso racing team entry. If I had Nick Latifi, who sort of, and then Lance Stroll. Who are you going to pick? I'm going to pick Latifi.
I would pick Lance
I'd
Stroll.
pick Lance Stroll
Latifi?
too.
Why would you pick Nick Latifi?
Out of spite, and just to prove a point.
One rich boy over the
He's
other.
a lovely
I get
boy.
it.
Look, he's a lovely boy. Good on him. And he had a crack, and he had his worst. He said it himself. He had his worst year in the most important year of his career, and that's it.
True.
Like that's it. What are you going to do? He's got a lot of money. You shouldn't feel too sorry for him.
I forget
exactly.
that. He is quite rich, eh?
Yeah, he's a pay driver.
I always said that he was good value in interviews, and
Yes.
I'll miss that.
Yes.
I'll miss that part of it.
He's very nice. And you can look, there is a room in Formula One for nice drivers. And that's fine. And he was in there for a while, and now he's out. That's all right.
Can I add some other boys to the nice driver room?
Yes.
Or maybe this is the left with a whimper.
Yes. I did suspect there were other drivers on this list, but
Oh, yes. Mick Schumacher has also unceremoniously, I think, just left the Formula One nice boys room. I don't know if he was a nice boy. He seemed fine.
He seemed fine.
And then maybe a slightly rogue choice, I think, is Daniel Ricciardo as well, who has had
He's
a stutter
100%
in.
right up there.
Yeah.
Not very good at all.
and
Just,
whimper.
but I think, but maybe there was slightly, maybe that wasn't quite with a whimper, but maybe it is, because it just kind of faded out, like faded in importance, I suppose, because there was a little period there where it was, and maybe it's the Carlos Sainz thing again, of like the people in the paddock knew who the really good drivers were. They just needed to get a really good car, and then they champions waiting in the wings. And if that happens to you when you're about 26 in Formula One, the next move has to be it, and it never quite worked for Daniel Ricciardo, just like it doesn't work with Sainz. And now that's it. Like, you have this window where you can get to a great team, otherwise your career will just like peter out slowly but surely. And now he's just... there's only really three categories of drivers. Like, you're the young upcomer, you are like world champion in waiting, or you are mature backup driver. And Daniel Ricciardo seemed to not spend a long time in that middle category of like, could he win a world championship? No, maybe not. And now now that's kind of gone. And Mick never quite made it into the second category of like, oh, world champion in waiting. He's just, I'd be really interested to hear what everybody else has to say about whether Mick Schumacher has a career in Formula One at all left.
I think he deserved one more season, but I don't think he's a world champion material. To be fair, he won F2 and F3, but I just don't think he's quite there. I think it's a shame because if you look at the second half of his year, excluding that weird crash in Japan in practice that was dumb and stupid and unnecessary, he actually he outscored Kevin Magnussen in the second half of the year in a car that, barely scored points. And in qualifying, he was on pace with Magnussen in the second half of the year. In fact, I think over the course of the season, when both cars finished, he finished ahead more often than not of Kevin. And Magnussen, most of his points came from that fifth place in Bahrain, the first round of the season, with both Red Bulls retired and Gasly's car caught fire and all that kind of stuff. So the gap between him and Magnussen was not nearly as big as it looked, which is why I think he deserved another year in Formula One somewhere. He deserved a chance to establish himself as that third category of midfield driver you mentioned, which is kind of like the backup drivers, the guys who are there. They deserve a spot to be running around because there's no one better around at the moment, and they score points regularly, and they might get a lucky podium or a win, on those weekends. That class of driver, I think he could absolutely have been that, and there's no shame in that. Most Formula One drivers are that class of driver.
Are that.
There are only 30-something world champions in the history of this sport, like 1 million drivers to have entered. So no shame in that.
Half of them Red Bull drivers.
Yeah, most of the Red Bull drivers. They last about 6 races, and now they're racing in Formula E, and good on them. The problem is that Haas didn't... and I understand why Haas got rid of him as well, because they didn't want a young driver anymore. They wanted an experienced driver. I don't think Nico Hülkenberg is going to bring that much other than consistency, but the question is what that level of consistency is. But I think it's a shame we won't get a little bit more out of Mick, because I think he deserved to be around, but, I don't think he's world championship material.
I think we're seeing that separation now as well of now he's a grown-up man. The custodianship of, Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari of like, we'll look after you, Mick. It's like, well, you've left the nest now. It's kind of in your hands. We can't gift you a Ferrari seat. Like, that doesn't really work. If you'd earned it, maybe, but not really. So I think that he did very well to win GP3 and GP2, or F3 and F2, whatever they were at the time. But I always look at those series as well and kind of think, but aren't all the guys who, like, are really fucking good, aren't they in Formula One? Like, they all got into Formula One and they're all at either pretty good teams or they're all kind of making it work.
Yeah, there's a funny thing with F2 and F3, and I think Nick de Vries is going to be the test, because some years, and it's something like, I don't watch F2, like I do watch F2 and F3, but I don't pretend to like analyze the quality of the drivers.
You're
like
Will Buxtoning your way through that.
But it's like because it's hard to know, because also the racing there is kind of random. You don't get that. It's hard to get a sense of the drivers unless they really run away with it. But some years, the paddock just sort of collectively decides, no one here is very good. And no matter who wins the championship, it doesn't matter. And Nick de Vries was that guy. He won the title in the year where they're like, no one here is really worth a crack.
Someone had to win.
And he didn't get any drives. And now he is going to have a shot in Formula One. And if he does really well... And yes, of course he's had years of experience since then. He's a Formula E champion. He's raced other stuff, whatever, even though no one rates Formula E either. So maybe it is the same argument. If he does well, then maybe we actually do need to think about some of these years where we're looking at and going, these guys are worthless, and thinking maybe we undervalue them. And that'll be a great argument for Felipe Drugovich, who won the F2 championship this year, because this was another year in which they're like, no one here. Everyone's rubbish in this. And that's why Felipe Drugovich does not have a drive. But if Nick de Vries suddenly proves actually maybe some of these years are not so bad, maybe that will force some perception changes. And that would also be a good argument for Mick, who I think was also in one of those years that people underestimated.
So can we go around the grounds on Ricciardo then? 33 years old, not going to be racing next year. I mean, Zach and I have talked about it. Zach's on record as saying, no, I reckon Ricciardo's back into Red Bull. Because if Perez just doesn't play ball, they'll just slot Ricciardo right in. They've got form doing that. But I just want, if he doesn't have the motivation now, what is going to happen in the next year or two that's going to get him motivated in the way that that one of the top teams is going to go, you're our man. Forget all of the, there'll be 2 more Formula 2 champions to choose from. There'll be other teams up and down the grid who are being bought by rich people who are installing their son or cousin
American
or whoever
owners.
into one of the seats. Yeah. There's gonna be more pressure on those 20 seats than ever before, 22 seats or however many we get. But I mean, I really struggle to see how Ricciardo can get back. And the problem is that he's asking himself the question now: do I even want to be here? That just does not fill anybody with confidence. Surely, who's one of those decision makers? Do you even want to be in Formula One? Not sure. Me. I'm not going to put I'm not going to pencil your name in for 2024. Like, it's not. You're not really spreading good vibes right now.
We've got 40 young guys over here who desperately will literally sell their own shoes
with $50
to be
million
in this team.
in backing. What have you got?
Yeah, they will do it for free and then more.
You say that, but then let me present to the court, Mr. Speaker, the Nico Hülkenberg on his third go at F1. Kimi Räikkönen literally got bored the second he won
He was bored before that
a
almost.
championship, and then was paid by Ferrari to not turn up the following year, and then crashed rally cars and drove NASCAR, and then somehow came back to F1 and effectively he had 2 careers.
Yeah.
He had 2 lifetimes worth of Formula One careers to Kimi Raikkonen.
He's like the Keith Richards of the grid.
Yes, and same with Fernando Alonso as well. We thought they were all kind of done. Whereas sort of, Sebastian Vettel's and Jensen Buttons of the world, they're like, yeah, no, that's I'm happy to call time. Whereas I think, but the other, I brought it up with Lando. You do a handful of these races and it changes you. It's exhausting. Just watching it is exhausting. I don't know how you travel and sort of immerse your life into it. And let's face it, Daniel Ricciardo's a different kettle of fish altogether. And I said this at the start of the again. This is a Robster Dramas sort of redemption episode. This one. This is where I'm proven to be right. Where I said a sabbatical may be the best thing for him. Going to Haas, not so good. Him going to another team and learning their processes, maybe not the best thing either. For him to go back to steady territory at Red Bull, it's okay to go back. It's perfectly fine. And for him to have a year off, because if you think about it, he's done it for over a decade now, being a Formula One driver. He's contrary to what 10 News first will tell you, his first Grand Prix was not bloody 2014 Australian Grand Prix. It was a few years before that. So he's done it for a while. It's exhausting. It's tiring. And I think a year off, even 2. And that's where I'd like. If
then he'll be 500 years old. I mean, come on.
If he wasn't back by 2025, then yeah, the door's shut. But
yeah, he's going into the Audi. Then it's the Audi seat, right?
Yeah.
That's the long term thinking. I think that could make sense. Is that you get a guy who's like 23, who's going to be your number one driver, who's going to be the guy, and then you go and get the wily old fox, Daniel Ricciardo, to come and be the guy who can help you develop your car. Who's going to be stable. He's not going to be the same party boy anymore because he's in his mid-30s by then. He's got bedtimes to think about.
And bad backs and
yeah. But I mean, what we're talking about, though, is other drivers who have done this are world champions. Daniel Ricciardo, I don't know how much clout Ricciardo has on the grid, but you're right about Hulkenberg, that he's the other guy. I think that Daniel specifically fits into this group where we had this gap of we had that season where we had 6 world champions on the grid, right? And it was like, oh my God, look at all these amazing drivers who are all here right now who can win. Any one of them could win a race today. In that season. And then we had this 10-year gap to all of these other young drivers who are like, yeah, they're going to be these guys when they come through. Oh, this class of guys, the Russells, Gaslys, Norrises, Verstappens, who are all coming through as well. But there was just this Hamilton-sized gap that he filled for everyone, and no one else did anything. There was just literally, except Vettel, except the guy who'd already won a handful of championships, who has already been the top of the game. And there was just this kind of nothing that happened. And if it was going to happen for Hulkenberg, Perez, Ricciardo, Grosjean, all of these guys, it had to be in those years, and they just didn't do anything. There was nothing there. And so I think the reason why Vettel and Alonso and stuff can keep coming back to Formula One and could kind of hold on to these positions is they had something to trade for that. They had value to bring to teams. It's I've got winning attitude. I know what it takes to win a Formula One championship. And none of you guys here at this new team have never been part of that, but I have, so I can show you. I don't think Daniel Ricciardo has that. Does Daniel Ricciardo have the look of a guy who's helping build and make a team go better? Not really. I think he's a guy who likes playing basketball with his fitness coach and hanging out in America and partying, and then he hops in the car and he's like, right, I'm locked in now. I've listened to some heavy metal music and I'm going to drive really fast. But I don't think there's anything else to him.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of natural talent that rides with him as well. So,
yeah.
But it only takes you so far. It's like the Nick Kyrgios effect. It's just I'm very good at what I do. If I practice more, I might get better at it. But I'll ride through
the team differently
because what's the difference?
Yeah.
I'm having fun. That is genuinely it is a legitimate attitude you have to have in sport, because I think the whole sort of, I need to be fixated, I need to become a world champion, it's almost unrealistic and unhealthy. Because I think the more that you...
But it's what gets them there.
It's true, but if that's all you are, then life is worthless if you don't achieve it. Then I don't think that's a good.
Yeah, but you're up against guys. If you want to win it, you're up against the guys who do think like that. And Verstappen was 100% that guy. So was Vettel. So was Hamilton. And as that starts to drift. It takes, as you said, it takes absolute focus and dedication to turn up every weekend and be the best you possibly can, because it's absolutely grueling. And the guys who do that win the world champions. They win the world championships. The guys who don't,
I guess,
don't win them. Like, I can't think of a single world championship winner except like Kimi Raikkonen in the whole time I've been watching Formula One, who wasn't absolutely living and breathing Formula
I guess the problem is I can't really see a path back for Daniel to one of the top teams. And right now he's saying, I'm not going to drive unless it's for a top team. So it's like, well, you're basically taking yourself out. And when he says he's burnt out, I believe him. I can understand that. I can understand him wanting to take a few years off. Even if he says, like, I need a break now for me to recharge and reassess and whatever, but I want to come back. That would be one thing. But he's not even really saying that. He's just saying, I'm not even sure if I want to be around here anymore. So that's a worrying sign for me. But I do think that if he comes back, it's going to be for one of the lower, like, back marker or back midfield teams. And he'll just be like, I'm back because I like competing. I'm here to see what I can do, but I'm just here to have a go. But, I mean, no one said the B word yet, so I'll say it. Fernando Alonso, Daniel Ricciardo, 2025 at Bathurst.
You said it. You said it.
Unsubscribe.
It's Chekhov's B word. You can't.
Chekhov's B word.
Yuck.
That is no good at all.
Yuck, that I think it's just why it doesn't. My life doesn't improve either way if that occurs because they won't win it. They just won't win it. It's been proven 1,000,001 times.
What? I don't even know what cars are in the V8. What's it called now? Is it V8 to V? Is it hydrocarbon? Like, brought to you by Hyundai, like, super fast maker cars? Like, what is that series now?
It's just called supercars. The best part of it, in my opinion, is before every race, they have this little 3D animation of, like, a man with no features at all opening a Pizza Hut box, and inside the Pizza Hut box is the phrase, "Mate, it's a schnitzer." And that's how every broadcast starts. It's just remarkable, in my opinion. I think everyone could learn from it.
Oh, my God.
Mate, you don't want to know. It's not worth knowing.
Mate, it's a schnitzer.
It's a schnitzer.
Mate.
Several times a day.
Wilhelm Schnitzer won Formula 3 this year, so maybe he's got a career at Bathurst. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's from the Schnitzer dynasty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, his father's a shipping magnate. Like, they all are, it turns out, if you want to be in Formula 1. Oh, goodness me. So we've decided that it's definitely Daniel Ricciardo who's the runner-up to the Not With a Bang, But With a Whimper. Brought to you by cryptocurrency.
I would have said he was the winner. I'm not sure why Nicholas. I think Nicholas the TV.
You're a stan of Nico.
I want to give him the Whimper Award as well, particularly because if this was his last season, rather,
it is with a whimper. Yeah,
he was with a whimper. Like, and realistically, I think the odds are greater than 50%. This was his last year. He needs a lot of things to go his way to come back to Formula One competitively, and you can't rule it out. I mean, look what happened in the driver market this year, but. You know, realistically, or like on paper at the moment, it's not going to happen.
So you don't think Red Bull are any chance of dumping Perez in the winter?
That's what I mean. He needs that to happen. Like, he needs Perez to. I don't even think it's a matter of him.
Drink. He's starting fights with him. He's going to do everything.
Just lock his hotel room door frequently and annoy him.
Just keep hiding his helmet.
He'll get out every time, but he'll become increasingly annoyed by it and then just walk out. I think that is his way in. In that sense, I kind of understand why Red Bull's a decent gamble, because if he's proving in the simulator he's still quick and Perez doesn't win them the constructors title next year, if next year's more competitive, then that does make sense. Like you've sort of said already, Red Bull does make sudden driver moves like that. Or there is always that outside chance that he could sign a long-term deal with Sauber to get him to that Audi take-up, which isn't until 2026, so it's a while away. But, there is a nice story that they'll have a great marketing value driver there who, if he is in his element, is quick. Like, let's not forget, the McLaren thing was a particular situation at Renault. He was extremely quick. At Red Bull's extremely quick. If they can capture that again, it's worth a punt. But I still think it is greater than 50% chance that this may have been his last race. In which case, he retired from Formula One with nothing. You know, of course, Sebastian Vettel was always going to dominate Abu Dhabi because he was a 4-time champion. Absolutely deserved it. But Daniel Ricciardo has had a massive impact on the sport. He is the second most popular driver by most metrics in Formula One. He's a multiple, 8-time race winner, and most of his race wins have been extremely entertaining. Like, he's an extremely popular figure in Formula One, a pretty large figure for the last decade. And we're facing the real prospect that he just doesn't turn up again.
Yeah,
like that, he's left and just doesn't come back.
It's like Seinfeld with that Kramer. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that's just kind of... And so I mostly hope he comes back almost just so he can actually retire properly.
Yeah.
Because that sucks. Like, that objectively, putting even aside the Australianism of it all, that just kind of sucks that's the way his career might end. So I hope for that reason alone he comes back. But otherwise, that dominates him for the Whimper Award. Absolutely. Because how else could you describe that?
Yeah.
Incredibly strong ticket sales at the Melbourne Grand Prix next year. Hopefully they're all happy to see Piastri and cheer him on, because if you're sitting in the Ricciardo grandstand going, oh, whoops. But yeah, I mean, it's good signs for the Australian passion for the sport. You could say that. So yeah, I mean, let's just hope that Piastri can deliver something for everyone to cheer for.
Have a crack, Piastri. They're the awards. Yep. All 4 awards awarded out, as awards must be done. Another successful year, everyone. We've managed to come up with 4 different awards, largely, and they're all good. Everyone did a good job.
Oh, thanks, Dad. I mean, Michael.
Oh, yes, no, that's good. Everyone did well. The best award was for friendship, which is another one we've again executed this year, didn't we? Super License and Box of Neutrals. I guess I should talk in the third person because he's technically appearing on both of our podcast feeds, but a pleasure as always.
It's always good to talk to you guys. Thanks so much. And I mean, I was
going to say, are we collectively Superbox, maybe?
Superbox. My favourite 70s punk band was Superbox. One of the best, one of the greats. Enjoy your off-season, your Christmas, your New Year, whatever it is you're doing. Let's not count down. I don't want to be ever the podcast that counts down the days till the first race next year. You can put that in your own calendar. But we'll catch you in 2023.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
You cringe.
Too cool for school.
So funny. Well, thank you so much to the Box of Neutrals guys for joining us once again. As always, it's a great way to cap off the year. It's like a sweet, what is it? It's like an aperitif. Is it the right word? It's like a little thing that caps off the night.
It's like a digestive.
That's what I was thinking of. Not the best word though.
No, digestif. That last whiskey before you go to bed. I think that's what it was. It's a bit fiery, still going strong. But you've had a good day and a good night.
A nightcap.
It's a nightcap. It's a strong nightcap. I suppose this is the nightcap after the nightcap. This is, you've had that drink and you've gone, you know what, one more, just quietly. Maybe some Baileys in a little, some warm Baileys.
This is just reaching into the top drawer next to the bed and just having a little sip of your little secret cask that no one but you
your little friend.
And the cask. It's a secret. Don't tell anyone, friend. I'm going to have a little sip right now. And close the drawer very quietly. No one's any the wiser. Yeah. What a life we live.
That's it. Thanks to Box of Neutrals and thanks to us, right, for doing a great show with them. So
thanks for us for joining them.
Exactly.
It's so great. I was leaving space there for you to say what you were trying to say, but I interrupted.
No, that's okay. I mean, God, if we lose flow now after a decade of doing this show.
Well, it nearly is a decade, right?
No.
A couple more months away.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I think, we're into 2023 and our first season was 2013. So
we'll get the
It's
dates.
always irked me that we didn't start at the start of that season.
Well,
so we are not. It'll be,
Maybe we can touch on that.
But this should be our 11th season, right?
I guess, yes. I guess by that logic, you're correct. It won't be 10 years to the day, but it'll be 11 years of work. It's the start of the 11th year of work. Whew, man, this is hard work itself. I guess we should do something to mark the 10th year. We will do that. We'll think about that. Zach and I'll think about that in our own time.
We'll do something.
Not on your dime. You're not paying us to think about that.
Not on your really expensive podcast time.
Well, thank you to all the Patreon supporters. Another fantastic year. Thank you so much from you. But we're done talking about Formula One. I guess we have 3 episodes of Dare to Swear that we need to put out somehow, somewhere. We'll think about that. How are we going to manage that?
Yeah.
Probably pending deadline will be the start of the next season of Drive to Survive, but we'll work something out.
Yeah, we'll do something like that. And I'm going to be in Australia, so maybe we can record something together. Maybe I'll bring my mic or something.
Well, look, I know your time in Australia is going to be precious, but we'll see. You never know. We might just have to work through the off-season just to keep the show going.
Yeah. Oh, God. You know who won't be working the off-season? Bonotto. Maybe we get him on the show. Well, yeah, so we'll get some data swears out. We will probably we take a little bit of a time off for ourselves and our families. We got to get,
yes.
It's a busy calendar, these Formula One calendars. So we'll have lots to talk about in the new year. We will usually do something we usually do a couple before the season starts, so there'll definitely be some dead swears, but there will probably be a little season preview. We like to do something in and around that first test, just to get a feel for whatever prank liveries Red Bull's playing on us before real liveries, and get a sense of how fast people are, what big mods and cheats that teams have brought, how the new drivers look in their new dungarees.
Yeah. We rank who's cheating the most.
Yes. Yeah, biggest cheaters. And we start to get excited again. But take a breather, everybody. You can relax.
Yes.
I hope you've got good Formula One presents on your gift lists. Hope you've been nice and not naughty. I hope Santa comes.
Yes.
Exactly. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, I just hope you have a nice festive, New Year's and part to this year, because it's been a long one this year. Not just in Formula One wise, but everything else. So it's flown by. We've got lots to look forward to in the new year.
That's a good call. I saw this news headline today that was like, this mum doesn't buy her kids Christmas presents. Read on to find out why. And I was like, you realise like heaps of the world doesn't actually celebrate Christmas, right? Like it's not a universal thing. But whatever your situation is, just try to give yourself some time for you and for the people you care about. That's the important thing.
I heard a really great analogy about your own rest that I've been thinking about since I heard it, which is a day ago, which is that your mind and your body are a bit like a battery, right? And a battery has 3 states. It has being aggressively used, it has standby, like not being used, and it has being charged, right? I suppose it has completely drained as well, but let's not talk. Hopefully you're never completely drained.
Oh, no.
But don't confuse being charged for being on standby. And I really like that, because I find that I am not, when I'm relaxing, I think I'm relaxing when I'm also watching the TV and looking on the Bird app and doing the thing, when really, if I think that's recharging, it's not. I'm just putting myself on standby. So instead, spend some time recharging.
Valid. And if you feel like taking a Twitter break, you should do it. Now's a great time to do it.
Oh, like all the advertisers are. Yeah.
We'll be back with some more talk soon, one form or another, and we'll talk to you then. I don't know, any other parting words, Zach?
When we come back next year, that's a good opportunity. You're a Formula One fan. It's a good time to get your friends involved in Formula One, and hopefully, if you'd like to have something to accompany them on that journey, Rod and Zach from the Super License F1 podcast, a couple of Formula Men over here, can help them along that journey.
Or maybe their pathway into Formula One has been Drive to Survive, and our Dare to Swear episodes might be a good way to get them into them. Or maybe you're going to rewatch Drive to Survive before the next season comes out. Again, revisiting Dare to Swear might be the ticket. The website, superlicense.fm, Formula Men. We're on Twitter, who cares? There's a Discord, that's probably better. Get in the Discord if I can work out how to get it working on my computer. Stupid freaking Discord. But other than that,
an old man.
Zach, I just can't wait to see you soon in the person. In reals life.
I know.
That'll be great.
Only a couple more like a week, and then I'm on the plane, baby.
Leave that good. Eat all the good. I was going to say leave all the good ice cream in the freezer. Eat it before you come. But you won't
eat it before I arrive.
You won't be needing it when you. No, I mean, you will be needing it because it'll be hot then. But the more exciting thing is seeing you.
Oh, same. Seeing you though, not me. I say me all the time. Seeing you, great.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right.
Well, anyway, I think that's enough. We're going to wrap it up there. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you again really soon. Take care of yourselves and each other, and until next time, my name's been Rod.
And my name's been Zach.
See you on the other side. Bye-bye.
Bye.